we have another edition of Ask the Mayor. Call the mayor, text the mayor, harass the mayor, anything you want to do. And tonight, we're very, very fortunate to have with us Monsignor Alan J. Placker, who is a Catholic priest, a Monsignor, a published theologian, and someone who has vast knowledge of both theology, and he's also a lawyer, which is the only bad thing about him. Nobody is perfect.
It's my one fault.
I know, you're a lawyer. And Alan is my friend for 435 years. we go back to the Constitutional Convention.
That's right. That's the ninth grade.
The ninth grade, right, when we did our first Constitution, right?
Right.
Well, I want to begin with a happy note, which is that Damar Hamlin, who I think everyone now knows, the wonderful young man, the football player who died on the field and had to be resuscitated at least once, some people say twice, is now awake. His first comment, what was it? Tell us his first comment, Monsignor.
He said, "Did we win?"
And they told him, "You won."
You won.
And he did. His agent, Ron Butler, says that he's awake. He's holding hands with his family. And also the agency that represents him has put out a statement saying he's making remarkable progress. So first of all, congratulations to the medical people.
That's right.
Who got to him on the field and were able to administer life saving. Well, tell us exactly what they did. You're pretty much of a medical expert too, Alan, having run the hospital system in Rockville Center.
Well, they used a defibrillator to bring him back because if you saw the picture, he's hit, he falls down, and they then get on top of him and start resuscitating him through CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and they also applied an electronic defibrillator, and they actually brought him back to life.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, when I saw it, I didn't see it originally, but heard it and then looked at it, and my immediate reaction when I saw his body cave in was he died. I said, "My goodness, I think he died." And then Dr. Maria looked at it and said he did die. He's that sudden death syndrome.
that's right.
And she said, "I hope they get the defibrillator there immediately. I guess the faster you do it, the better chance." And they must have done it right away.
Yep. And there was a fear, by the way, that he might have lost some of his brain power. If he'd been deprived of oxygen for a sufficient period of time, he would have lost his brain power. But he didn't, which is really remarkable. It's a great blessing that, in fact, they not only defibrillated him, but they were able to bring him back. When he went to the hospital, he was intubated, so he
wouldn't have to breathe.
That's right. But he wasn't able to speak. So that people held his hand, and then they gave him a pen, and he started writing. And the first thing he wrote down was, "Did we win?" Did we win?
Well, that's a football player, but also a very, very unusually fine young man, right?
Yeah.
All these things about him are true, right?
Absolutely. Raised as a Catholic, and I say that because he had a spiritual side to him from the very beginning. And when they did get to the point where he could write, he made it clear that he was thinking and feeling and full of life, even while he looked dead. It's absolutely remarkable. When you see it.
It is going to be remarkable when he's able to describe.
That's right.
I mean, the man died and came back to life.
Yep.
It's just, it is spiritual, remarkable.
It is. And I really thought that when he did come around, there'd be some brain damage, or not at all.
Oh,
So he did not lose oxygen to his brain, so that he was able to speak through writing.
mhm.
And when they get that the intubation out of him, he'll be able to speak, with his own voice.
Well, I think that's really.
Yep.
I think a whole nation is relieved to some extent. Of course, I guess he's not completely out of danger. These things
No, he's still
can
in
turn
critical.
on you, but right now it looks like something that's pretty hopeful.
Yeah, he's still in critical condition. There's a lot of work still to be done medically, but he's on his way. The fact that he could write sensible messages,
Yes.
is absolutely remarkable, because I was concerned that when they were able to communicate with him, that he wouldn't have enough of his own brain power left that he could speak. But he has absolutely all of his brain power, in fact, alive. And I think that's remarkable.
So I would say, with all that's going on in Washington and elsewhere, that's the most important story of the day. Life is affirmed.
Right.
And how it happened, we'll all be able to review. But remarkable doctors and nurses and caregivers, and a remarkable number of prayers, and all of those people donating to his wonderful charity that buys toys for children.
Yeah. His goal was $2,500, and is now over $5 million has been collected for the children that he's out to help. This is a guy who cared about other people, and you can see, if you picture that moment, the people crowded around him. They went to him, and they brought all the blessings of modern medicine right to the field.
Yeah, amazing.
Yep.
Amazing. Right there, right on the field.
Right.
I mean, it was instantaneous.
Yep.
Because it's hard to count the seconds, but he went down right away. They were there. Then then you couldn't see a lot, because the players, which I thought was just so beautiful, these tough guys. I mean, really tough guys that hit each other like.
Right.
They're praying. They're all praying.
They're all praying.
They're all praying.
There's a beautiful moment in it where one guy comes up to the crowd and reaches over and pulls on the arm of the next guy, and he reaches his hand up so they can all hold hands and create this circle of life around this young man who looks dead, but as a matter of fact, still has the gift of life. I was very moved by that.
Yeah, I think the whole country was.
Yeah.
They interviewed some of the players, and some of the players are very religious.
Yep.
And some of the players were praying to God in their own way, their own
Right.
way, for God to bring them through. Some of them weren't even religious, but they said, "We have nothing else we can do. Let's pray to God."
Let's pray. Yeah, and that's exactly what you could see in that moment. That people, there were players who looked tough as could be,
Wow.
with tears running down their face, because they wanted him to live. And I think that you talk about prayer, but the power of prayer. If God wants you to live, He's going to have you live. But God had partners in this, and it was all those people, all the people who
I
should have
believe
been
that.
going on to play a ball game.
Yeah.
That's why his first message was, "Did we win?" His concern was, "What happened to the game?"
Yeah,
And they said to him, "You won."
he sure did.
He had life when everyone thought he was dead.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great also example that this is still a very religious country. With all the stuff about America's become atheistic and America's become this, you get into a moment like that, and I guess they always say that on the battlefield, God is always present.
That's right. And all those guys, I looked at them, and they are tough ball players. They're not thinking about God or religion.
Not until
They're
then.
playing it. In that moment, they became filled with the desire to see that young man survive. And
That's wonderful.
I really do think that the power of prayer is evidenced by what they did and what they did for him. Again, I don't think God needs me or you or any of us to tell him what to do. God already had a plan for this young man. The people around him didn't know what that plan was. They were terrified. And in that moment, holding hands as a group around him, they became the face of God in the world.
Yeah, and it was a unbelievably beautiful scene, and one that goes a very, very long way to kind of negate this attitude that somehow America's become an atheistic country, an agnostic country. Here you are, a moment of tragedy, and the first thing they do, without even thinking, is turn to God. So, thank you.
There may be some truth to saying that we've begun to lose our faith. But as a matter of fact, when there's nothing for you except to pray.
Yes, someone said that.
Yeah, praying changes not just the person you're praying for, but it changes you. It becomes a prayer that changes the hearts of the people around him. And when I watched it, I thought, gee, there is so much going on there. People who want the power of God to change what they see before them. And it did. And it did.
So we'll go now from the sublime to the ridiculous.
Okay.
Which is the House of Representatives.
Speaking of.
So Ted, bring us up to date on, I take it there was an 11th vote?
That's right, Mayor. We have now done 11 votes. We've done the 11th ballot, has wrapped up with McCarthy receiving 200 votes. The same he received in the 10th and 9th round today. Jeffries maintains his 212 vote. I guess right now you could call it a lead,
Yeah,
but of course,
yeah.
but that's just all Democrats sticking on the same page here, going with Jeffries. So he's 212. That's split between Donald's and now Hearn today. Representative Hearn's been brought up as another alternative. Donald's takes 12, Hearn takes 7, and our former president, Donald Trump, received 1 vote for speaker from Representative Matt Gaetz, who may be the strongest holdup. And then, of course, a 21st individual, I believe it's Representative Sparks, I'll double check that, has voted present. So 212 for Jeffries, 200 for McCarthy, and 20 are still voting for, they want somebody else.
And one hasn't voted. So really, and that's a Republican. So 21 Republicans are not supporting
Mr. McCarthy at this hour.
And he needs 18 of them.
He needs 18 of these
21.
21.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a large percentage. I mean, it's a strange way you can look at it. You can look at it from, and some people do, 200 Republicans want him. 21 right now don't. Shouldn't the 21 accede to the wishes of their colleagues?
Sure. Another way of looking at
Or
it is to say, do we let 21 people rule our country? When there are 200 people going in one direction, do we let 20 people rule the country? And I hope that is not going to be true.
and I wonder why the 21 can't, or the 200 can't find a way to persuade their colleagues, or at least 18 of them. And it seems like, well, I don't know, maybe it's still too early to say they're not going to be able to do it.
There are multiple reports tonight. I'm guessing these are coming from McCarthy's camp that they're not saying a deal, but some additional negotiations have led to a number of these 21 making a commitment that they'll support him. I'm now reading some people want to see this in writing, right? They want to hold these people to their word in these backdoor discussions by asking them, you got to put this in writing. You got to put this in writing that if this, and this happens, you will support Mr. McCarthy for speaker.
When you say this, and that, like what has to happen?
Additional concessions. So at this point now, obviously we know about the some of the concessions they've wanted, which is allowing one member to call for a vote to oust the chair,
Which had been the rule.
Always was the rule.
Until Pelosi changed it recently.
Yeah.
How
Within the last 4 years, she changed it
to 5?
Yeah, so that you'd need 5 people to bring that vote to the floor, and people are saying, well, why did they do? Hey, look, it only takes one person in any normal grouping to raise a question. Some people are misunderstanding this to think that one person can control. That's not true. It's not that one person can decide what will happen.
One person can raise it, and I imagine it has to be seconded.
It has to be second,
And then it has to go to the floor.
and then it has to go to the floor.
But then everybody has to vote.
Exactly right.
And as we continue this discussion, please comment below, comment on Facebook, let us know on Twitter, Getter, let us know below. Are you currently with the 21 or are you with the 200? And when we say you're with the 200, are you with the idea that this cannot continue? Well, let's say that. So are you with A, let's do this. A, you're with the 21 holdouts, you don't want to see McCarthy. B, let's end this. It looks like we got to go with McCarthy. You want the 21 to kind of get on board. A or B, let us know. Are you with the 21? You can comment 21 below. That works. Or are you with the 200? And Monsignor and Mayor, one point people are making that aren't with, they don't want to see McCarthy as speaker. They don't look at it as McCarthy or total chaos, right?
Right.
That's how Mr. McCarthy and his team want to play it because he's got 200. There are 222 Republicans in the House of Representatives. McCarthy's one of them. He's gotten now 200 votes. So the question these people are posing is there not one of 221 of the others that could get to 218? They don't see this as McCarthy or total chaos. They see it as McCarthy or one of the other 221 elected representatives. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but no one has come forward that has the possibility of getting 218. I mean, they tried to put Jordan up, and Jordan did everything he could to get himself off the ballot. And it's hard to think of who would be the one that could go to 218. I would think the only time we find that out is if McCarthy decides, well, I just can't. I mean, how long can I do this? I just can't hold out any. I just can't keep doing this.
And the people who are most likely to be able to draw the majority don't want their names put in. So Scalise, for example, he does not want himself to be nominated because he's not looking to put himself up against, not just against McCarthy, but against the majority, against the 200 people who are online to bring this thing home.
Here's a question for both of you. Of those 200, how many are, oh, McCarthy's my person, it's got to be Kevin McCarthy, he's the only one that can do this, and how many of them are, A, new members who, yes, they feel, Mr. McCarthy, help me out, I owe a little bit of something to him, but, how many of them are, do you think, will quickly be willing to move on to somebody else if that's where, I guess at this point, none of them, or a couple, right?
I think there are a couple of remarkable things here that contradict each other. One is how solid the two went down from 203 to 200,
right?
But now it's been 200 for 6-7 votes, so it doesn't sound like they're going to be easily persuaded to go to somebody else. Otherwise, some of them would have dropped off already.
Sure.
On the other hand, the 21 seem to be remarkably stubborn and dug in that it's not going to be McCarthy.
Yeah, and that's what concerns me, is are we going to have a country that's ruled by 21 people? And I hope that's not the case. And I don't say that because I'm a great supporter of McCarthy, but rather because I'm not in favor of 21 people having the power to control the United States of America.
It's also remarkable that President Trump and Minority Leader McConnell, who apparently don't agree on anything anymore, agree on McCarthy. That's pretty remarkable. And I think they do because they both see it as in the best interest of the party. I think.
And of the country.
Yeah.
And of the country. And I think you've kind of hit on the two big camps, and I think they both are based in legitimacy. On one hand, people that say we got to get this stuff done. We took the House. We got to start these investigations. Let's get this thing going. McCarthy may not be everyone's favorite, but he's certainly not the worst. That's their argument. And then there's a camp of people that say, no, McCarthy's part of the Washington permanent political class. There is no situation where we want him there. We want somebody else. And we want to show Washington, we want the House to show the permanent Washington political class that the people still have power. And I think both of those positions, you tell me, I think those are
when
two.
You say the people have power, if you look at the numbers, it's 10% of the people as against 90% of the people. So which people have the power?
Of those 200, how many of them, and we've talked about this.
I don't think you can find that out because they have just demonstrated remarkable consistency in continuing. I think you have to take it that 200 want him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he's off the ballot, you're obviously going to have to go somewhere else. But right now, it seems like they're completely content in having him as the speaker.
Mm-hmm. So the 200 people who consistently vote for him have seen him as the most likely person to have the gavel, to be the Speaker of the House. As you well know, you don't even have to be a member of the House to be the Speaker. Yeah, that's why President Trump got a vote, by the way. But in this case, 200 people have decided that McCarthy is their man. They want him in. And it's been shaken in many, many different ways. Several different people have been proposed as alternatives. Good people, by the way. Mm-hmm. But they have not shaken that 200. So I think that's really the heart of the matter, is who could possibly take McCarthy's place. I don't see anybody who can really step into it.
And the end result is it's either going to be McCarthy or not. So if it is McCarthy, you're going to have 20, 21 disgruntled people, some of whom vote for him because they have to. On the other hand, if it isn't McCarthy, you've got 200 disgruntled people. Yeah. And I assume that not all of them are, 100% McCarthy, but I'm sure a lot of them are. So I'd say it's 100. You're going to have 100 disgruntled people who feel that their votes were taken away from them. They feel that they've had not just a majority, but a super majority of their caucus has voted for him, and they've been rejected. Moving forward from that is going to require one hell of a leader to replace McCarthy.
Does this expose any potential vulnerabilities in a two-party system?
No, because you're going to end up with the same thing when you're trying to look at Netanyahu or look at England, which is really a two-party system. They've got to do a tremendous amount of negotiating. Netanyahu has to make all kinds of deals in order to put together his coalition. It's just a different dynamic, but it's very much the same kind of thing. And by the way, it is inherent in the democracy. I mean, when they say he made a deal, of course they make deals.
Yeah.
That's how you get bills passed, by making deals.
Compromise.
Yeah.
This whole idea that the people have to be listened to. Well, who are the people? If you get 200 members of this caucus who have demonstrated that they will not be moved, isn't that not the voice of the people?
Yeah. The other problem is that 20 or 21 haven't really made a strong case. Usually this happens when there's some scandal or there's some ethical issue or some capacity issue. I mean, none of that's been raised. the issues that are raised are rather mundane.
Well, I think the big issue from what I'm seeing in the comments, I think what they might argue is that the McCarthy represents the permanent Washington political
But does
class,
he?
the uniparty.
What establishes that he represents the?
For example, some people would like to see the entirety of the January 6th files. They want to see all those released. And a lot of people, I don't believe McCarthy is currently on track to release everything, right? Unredacted, give us everything, show us everything. A typical Washington politician, to a lot of these people's minds, they won't do it, right? They want someone that will come out and release everything because they feel what happened on that day and how it's been. And we don't have to get into that right now. Right? The anniversary is tomorrow. But I'm giving you an example, a very specific example. They want to see everything released, unredacted, everything.
I have not heard McCarthy say that he won't do that.
No.
I haven't heard McCarthy say that he won't release everything. Now, there'll be McCarthy or anyone else, there'll be legal issues about releasing everything. Some of it could be truly classified. So he doesn't have the power to just release everything. Actually, the president is the only one who has the power to do that.
Sure.
McCarthy can't decide what's classified and what's not classified. Only Biden can decide that. And you know he's going to cover it up like he covered up the hard drive.
Yeah.
I mean, they won't release Pelosi's files, which is outrageous.
Yeah.
It's outrageous.
Yeah.
And it has to tell you, because we're not stupid, there's something in there that's very damaging to them. But I don't see McCarthy as going soft on that. But and that isn't the issue there. So then put that to him. So say to him, McCarthy, we're not going to vote for you because you're not going to release the maximum number of files you legally can release.
Put that to him. Yes.
And get an answer to it. I will. I won't. Nobody's done that.
No.
Okay, so that's one thing. So I think a lot of people, generally speaking, look at McCarthy as kind of part of, and that happens, right? When you've been there so long, I'm not even saying it's all his fault.
Mm-hmm.
He's been there for 16 years, and that I think inherently you start to, become a part of Washington. And so I can tell you, our commenters are very fired up about this discussion. It's a very good discussion to have. And let's get right to the questions. Mayor, I don't think Kevin McCarthy would have your back as speaker. Do you? That's a comment we're getting from someone. They're looking at this from a lens. They're with you, Mayor, right? They're with you. And some people are saying, well, they don't trust McCarthy. They'd like to see obviously Trump or Mayor Giuliani as speaker. And there are a lot of people saying that in the comment section. And as funny as that sounds, as someone who looks up to both the mayor and President Trump, I actually see where people are coming from. They want to see someone who's proven to them is authentic, even if they don't agree with you 100% of the time. You're authentic. They know where you stand. You're good with people, and you love your country, right? And I'm not saying Kevin doesn't fill all of those buckets, but he certainly doesn't in the way Mayor Giuliani or President Trump.
But I would tell you without any doubt, he's by far not my number one choice. And if you're asking me, does he have my back? I would say no. I don't think he's got what's the right way to say it?
The courage?
No, the internal fortitude to
I'll say it.
to do something as controversial as to say, something. We've now had 3 or 4 revelations in which it turns out that Giuliani was completely right.
And Mayor, you use the word controversial. It's not controversial.
I don't think he would have the ability to do that. I agree with you.
And the thing is, Mayor, and you said the word controversial. The thing that
He's
it's
too much
not
of a
controversial
politician to do that.
And what you just said is not controversial, and that's where our audience and a lot of Americans are. It's not that McCarthy is this bad, evil guy or anything. He doesn't have the internal fortitude to stand up. And
I would say Jordan does.
And that's what we're seeing in the comments.
I mean, if you want to get it down to that question, Jordan has Jordan knows the situation better than McCarthy does in great detail.
Mayor Giuliani has loyalty, conservatism, and faith. He would be an excellent speaker. These are just some comments we're getting. Sorry. Yeah, I'm reading comments we're getting, Mayor. So we're getting a lot of great comments.
Where
not big McCarthy audience.
Where are we getting them from?
Comment below your name and where you're tuning in from. We'll read some of those off this evening, and we're already halfway through the fastest hour on the internet. America's Mayor Live with America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani. We're getting a lot of people pushing for Jordan, of course. People obviously pushing for the mayor. Ask us some questions, folks. Molly in Minnesota, Eagle Arrow coming in from Virginia. James is in Orlando, Florida. Ward checking in from West Virginia. Griselda in New York City. Luke says hello from Sacramento. Molly in Ohio. Hugh in Arkansas. Puerto Rico checking in. Martha from Maryland. Tim is in Mexico. Daryl in West Virginia. Frank in Hammond, Louisiana.
Well, then,
And we could keep going. I can't keep up.
As long as we have New Mexico, so why don't we turn to the invasion of America, which is ongoing, meaning that people can walk over the border at will without any without any attempt to stop them. And then that puts them in the United States, which gives them rights, which they can use to stay here for unlimited periods of time by getting bail, so we've had 4 million of these people come in since Biden is president that we've identified. Some of them have been sent back because of Article 42. But we also have an unknown group that have come in that were never stopped. The general calculation is if 4 million came in and were stopped, pretty close to another 4 million came in. We don't know who they are or what they're doing.
Or where they are.
But we see effects like people are dying of drug overdose at numbers unheard of from fentanyl, which comes over that border.
Coming over the same border.
And Biden is going to finally go to the border. Is that correct, Ted? He's going to
That's right.
What's he going to do there?
President Biden apparently is going to be making his way to the border.
Is he going to welcome people? I mean, he told them a year and a half ago or 2 years ago they should surge to the border and come in.
That's right. So, of course, President Biden has also announced new border enforcement actions. I don't know if you saw that today. And it's interesting how the New York Times and that will, go with that headline. Their headline is Biden announces major crackdown on illegal border crossings. And this comes, this announcement, right, just a few days before his visit, which will be to El Paso. And that is on Sunday.
So he's going to stop them from coming over the border? He's going to put the Border Patrol back on the border and stop them from coming in.
This is what he said at the White House today. Mr. Biden's administration would deny people from Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Haiti the chance to apply for asylum if they cross the Mexican border without authorization between official ports of entry.
Without authorization?
Yes.
I'm not even sure, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that he would win in court. Once they get into the United States, they've learned the magic words. You say, I fear political person. At that point, they're entitled to a hearing. That's a law.
Yeah.
And the point is, you can't let them come in. So what Trump did, which is what Reagan did in an earlier period, he held those hearings outside the United States. So he reached a remarkable agreement with the communist president of Mexico, Lopez Obrador,
well,
to do the vetting, because outside the United States they have no rights. So if they're determined to be true refugees or asylees, fleeing political persecution rather than just fleeing poverty or unhappiness, they'd be allowed in. If not, they wouldn't. Now, Ronald Reagan did the same thing in 1981 or 82 with the people coming in from Haiti. He put Coast Guard cutters outside of Haiti, intercepted the people before they came across, maybe 20% of whom died before they got here. Mm-hmm. And he did the screening on the boats, and the people who were legitimate were brought to the United States. People who weren't were put back in Haiti, and it stopped it. It ended the massive illegal migration from Haiti, which was in combination with the Mario boat lift completely ruining southern Florida. That's what Biden would have to do. But for some reason, when Biden came into office, he just decided to cancel everything Trump was doing without any analysis of whether it was effective or not.
Or if it was right or not.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the biggest problems that he created. He also, at the Democratic convention, told them to surge to the border, basically saying, once I get in, you're all going to come in. So he's got to reverse a lot to get control of that border, because right now we're being invaded, literally being invaded. And sure, a lot of those people are, I'm sure, very legitimate in the sense that they're maybe fleeing political persecution, maybe fleeing poverty, but a lot of them aren't.
But isn't the problem that all they need to do is say that, and if they say it, then they are entitled to stay?
All they need to do is say it, and that triggers the law. Or at least that's one interpretation.
That's one way of looking at it.
I imagine you could interpret it also that you can look behind that. But right now, the interpretation is if they say it, they're entitled to a hearing if they're in the United States. If they're outside the United States, they literally have no rights. And the United States would be doing it on its own, basically as a humanitarian act, would say, okay, you are a political prisoner, therefore we'll take you in. Also, the countries that he's picked to be tough on are communist countries.
Yeah.
In other words, it sounds like he wants to send them back to communism, but let everybody else in. Cuba, Venezuela. I mean, if there are political asylees, they're probably more often from that country than, let's say, Mexico or Nicaragua or the other places they're coming from. Which gets me back to my feeling that this is I think the express train to Marxism has gotten to the station, and this is a Marxist government.
And many people see this as a long-range issue, that if you let them in, you're eventually going to have a whole new world of democratic voters down the road. If they're allowed to stay and they're given rights, so that it can be argued that what Biden is doing is not just something for the moment, but rather down the road to see that his party has exactly what they need, more and more voters that come out of nowhere.
Right, who don't really have an understanding or commitment to American values. I mean, America is tied together by values, right? It's not tied together by ethnicity. It's not tied together by religion. It's not tied together by race. We're all different religions. So what ties us together? Several very, very important shared values, which traditionally we believe come from God, not from government. Or I guess if we're not religious, from nature, not from government. Now, none of these people have any concept of that. They can be trained in any Marxist theory that we currently use in our schools, in which what we do is we teach young people to hate America. I mean, you look at the curriculum in a lot of our public schools. It's America is systemically racist.
Right.
The president says that. If America is systemically racist, America is an evil country. I don't even know why anybody would come here if he was systemically racist.
But they are coming here.
Yeah, which contradicts completely what Biden is saying.
They're not getting into China. They're not getting into Russia. They're coming here because they see something here that they want. And what Biden is doing, I believe, letting more people in so that down the road, they will be a new voter bloc.
Yes. Yeah, a new voter bloc that would be sort of able to be formed into what I would call the Marxist political principles that now are part of the Democrat Party. That you don't need to work. You can get sometimes a lot more benefits working than not working. You basically aren't going to be held for a crime unless you killed about 4 people. that largely the rights of criminals overshadow any rights of victims. I mean, there are so many anti-American parts to what Biden has done that it's frightening. It's frightening. It's like we can wipe out our country. I mean, a country without borders is not a country. Country has to have a border to be a country in order to define itself. I mean, if you let everybody into Switzerland, it'd no longer be a Switzerland.
And of course, and people are saying, I'm not working, I'm lazy, I'm in no way contributing to the country, and yet I want all the rights
Yes,
that come to me.
this isn't when I was in the Justice Department dealing with immigration. The biggest number we were dealing with were Mexicans who were coming here to work.
Mhm.
They were coming here to pick the grapes and pick the crops, and in fact, they even had guest worker programs where they'd come in for half a year and go back.
Right.
And they would come here, they'd work, and they send the money back to the people in their country. There's no sense that this group is like that. In fact, there's no sense at all about what this group is because it's coming in chaotically. And the other part of it is, even when very good people can come in chaotically, bad people can take advantage of that. And that border is patrolled by Mexican cartels. So they see 1,000 people coming in. Let's say they're the most wonderful people in the world. So great opportunity to stick some drug dealers in with them, some terrorists in with them, to bring in children for human trafficking. It's an ideal situation for an organized crime group to take advantage of, and they'd be foolish if they didn't.
And that is exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, that is exact, and that is the being so unrealistic as to not recognize that baffles me. Alan, I don't understand that. I don't understand why you don't realize if you create chaos in El Paso, right on the other side of El Paso is Juarez, Mexico, which at times has been the most dangerous city in the world. Juarez, when I recall it being run by the Sinaloa cartel.
Yeah.
The Sinaloa cartel sees this and says, wow, what a great opportunity to make money with China. We'll bring in fentanyl, we'll make a fortune with China, and we'll just slip our fentanyl people in with the big crowd coming
Sure.
in. And also, we'll look for opportunities to send them in where they're not detected at all, because the Americans are so busy with these millions of people coming in. They have all sorts of opportunities just to send people right over the border, and we never see them.
And if they are not identified when they come over, then eventually they become people who can be convinced to become voters.
Sure.
For the Democratic Party.
Sure. In New York City, the New York City Council voted to allow non-citizens to vote. Now it's been enjoined because it's pretty clear. I mean, the New York State Constitution sets the qualifications for voters. And one of the qualifications is that you're a citizen. But the New York City Council, which has no regard for the New York Constitution or the United, I can't imagine they even read it. For some reason, they think they can override that principle, and a Democrat judge, has enjoined it, and I think it'll probably be declared unconstitutional. But it gives you an idea that you're right, and they're sort of even jumping the gun and signaling that they were already giving them the right to vote.
Yes, because that decision is being made below the federal level, so that on a state level or a city level or a county level, people are being given the right to vote in those lower levels. And it raises the whole question of whether or not they should be entitled to vote federally as well.
So having you here, I have to ask you about Pope Benedict, whose funeral was today, with a beautiful, beautiful eulogy by Pope Francis. And of course, the ritual of the Roman Catholic Church is the reason I love opera. I mean, there's nothing like it, really. Pope Benedict has to be a very confusing figure to many people, Catholics and non-Catholics, because of the fact that he resigned. And
Sure.
on the other hand, I when he first resigned, I was very confused. I've come to think that was an enormously courageous and very spiritual thing to do. After all, this is probably one of the 2 or 3 most powerful jobs in the world, right? Along with it comes enormous perks, right? You're treated like a king. He gave that up to live like a monk.
Mm-hmm.
That has to come from some kind of sincere belief in something.
Sure. And the greatest thing that the Pope has is a platform. Whoever has that office is able to get a hearing in the whole world. And Benedict had that, but he was a man of enormous simplicity, a brilliant theologian, a brilliant philosopher, a man who who cared for Pope John Paul when he was ill, and suddenly he is elevated to be Pope. And I can still picture the way he held his hands up to let people know that he was now the person they had to look to. And he did it for a number of years, but the simplicity and plainness of his own personality led him finally to withdraw, to lay aside both the burden and
the glory
of the office, and to go live in this little monastery hidden away inside of the Vatican. His death did not come as a surprise. He was 95 years old.
No, he lived a long life. Yes. Obviously, a very hardy man.
And he lived a long life after his retirement. So
he did.
Yeah,
and he wrote a lot.
That's right. After he said, "I'm too old and too sick to continue with this office," he went and lived in the Mater Ecclesiae monastery in the Vatican grounds.
Did he more or less live like a monk?
He lived like a monk, and lived like, more than a monk, lived like a scholar. He sat there and he wrote books. He spoke to little groups of people. What he really wanted to be. He did not want to be Pope. He did not want power or the platform of the papacy, but rather what he wanted was the opportunity to reflect on the things that were happening in the world. And he did that in his writing and in his speaking. And his death today celebrated, it's such an interesting thing. You had a Pope burying a Pope. You never have that.
No,
I never have that. And, for 600 years, we've not had a Pope resign. And he did it now by putting aside the glories and the power of platform that comes from the papacy, and went back to what he really wanted to be, which was a simple priest, a man devoted to thought, the intellectual life, and the opportunity to share with other people his view of what the world is, what the church is, and who Christ is. And in his books, giving of the life of Christ.
Yeah, I mean that's a set of, I think, 3 volumes.
It's 3 volumes. Yeah.
On the first one being the Nativity, and then it moves along through Christ's life. I mean, it's really beautifully written and explained. He's a powerful writer.
Yeah. Well, and you know why he's a powerful writer? Because he's a powerful thinker.
Yes.
The clarity of his thought is absolutely stunning. And when he was Pope, he didn't have the opportunity to do that because there were 100 different tuggings and pullings.
Of course, I mean it's a monstrous job
Sure.
in terms of administrative,
and also
and political and religious and
expectations. Different people expect different things of the Pope. What he wanted to do was to go back into that little monastery on the Vatican grounds and be able to speak not in response to what people wanted, but rather out of his own heart.
Did that.
And he did. His description of his is absolutely clear, simple, and direct. And I would urge people who can do so to read those 3 volumes and see.
Yeah, they're really actually also they're pretty easy to read.
They're easy to read.
It's not a dense theology or.
No, that's the whole point. He was that kind of. He was a real priest. He was able to speak with the heart of a priest and describe what he believed in such a way that people could share his beliefs. And his books do that.
He also had a very, very strong view and very important observations about the world and what's happened in the world, and the point that it's gone in the direction of amorality and loss of standards, and that's more general than just religion. I mean,
absolutely, and he was clear about that as well, making his view of the world and how the world had changed something very powerful, and an invitation to people to reflect with him on what was happening in the world around us. When he was Pope, he couldn't do that.
No, I remember he got in trouble. He was an unabashed supporter of Western civilization, for which I admire him, because Western civilization is cast aside. Is probably the only reason we're civilized. And when he did that, he's accused of being anti-Islam and anti.
They took words out of context. And
nothing. He said nothing like that.
That's
I mean,
right.
What he was reflecting is a very, very legitimate historical argument about the impact of Western civilization, which has been remarkable.
Yeah. And he's so absolutely immersed in that civilization. If he had not been elected Pope, he would have been exactly the kind of thinker and speaker who makes clear what he understood about the civilization that gave rise to him and to the rest of us. And see, a lot of his writing and his speaking has invited ordinary people, you and me, to reflect on how did we get here? Where did we come from?
But we sure have to do that, because it's hard to understand where we are right now.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, people wake up in the morning, and I do, and other people share this with me, and they say to themselves, I never thought this would I never thought this would happen. I never envisioned in America the kinds of things that are going on.
Yeah. And again, when he was Pope, it was difficult for him to comment on those things directly without being pulled in 100 different directions.
You also have to say, this is rather parochial, I think he loved America more than the present Pope.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. The present Pope,
I don't think he loves us.
Although he's an Argentinian in the legal sense, he's an Italian.
But Italians love America.
Well, but he is more of a South American than he is an Italian.
So affected by the liberation theology,
Exactly
and
right.
that sort of thing. So I also, before we end, there was a decision by the Idaho Supreme Court that I should ask you about, because it's the kind of decision we expected would happen after the reversal of Roe against Wade. So Idaho had passed a law before Roe was, before Roe was reversed, in which they prohibited abortions except for life in the incest, rape, or a certified situation by a doctor with a procedure that has to be followed about life of the mother. So they virtually banned abortion. So Planned Parenthood took it to the Supreme Court of Idaho. Idaho Constitution, but there's no constitutional Idaho Constitution for abortion, and that legislature has the right based on the Supreme Court decision to make the decision they feel is right about abortion.
And that's so I think a lot of people miss the point of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, thinking that it means that abortion is not legal anywhere. It's not what it says at all. It only says that on the federal level, there's nothing in the United States Constitution that guarantees the right to abortion. And it throws it back to the states.
And states have reached remarkably different results. To New York, in which abortion is permissible up until the day the baby is born, to Idaho, where it is banned, except in those few narrow circumstances.
And this really gives an insight into how our country is put together. People have the right to move from New York to Idaho if they wish, not just for this issue, but for other issues as well. To say, I don't want to live in a state that has this point of view. I want to live in a different kind of society. And that kind of freedom means that people have the mobility, not just physical mobility, but the intellectual and spiritual mobility to find a place where they can be comfortable and at home.
Absolutely correct. And people are doing it in large numbers. I mean, you look at probably more often based on economic and social issues, but you look at, I may have it in the wrong order, but the states with the most out-migration are New York, New Jersey, California, and Illinois. All states in which taxes are more than 50% of what you earn, where the government is much more involved in your life, directs your life, and in which abortion is available at any time, at any place, at any time, at any point in the pregnancy, including destroying an 8-month baby.
Right. That's right. And people are moving. If you look at the movement, for example, from New York to Florida.
And Texas. New York, Florida, and Texas are the two big.
Those are the two big places that people are moving to. And it's interesting that people are choosing to move to places that give them more personal freedom and less control by the government.
Thanks for
When I
joining us.
come down here, I often say I feel like I just left East Berlin and came to West Berlin.
Thanks for joining us. The fastest hour on the internet. Wow, this hour really flew by with our very special guest.
Ask him one question as a Florida resident, and of course, there's so much discussion of Governor DeSantis, and you live here, so you have a sense of what. So put aside the presidential and whatever he may not. How do you see him as a governor?
Oh, I think he's an excellent governor, and I think most people in Florida have come to see that. So that the state is very interesting. If you look along the East Coast,
Which is where we are right now.
that's right, you'll see the transplantation of ideologies that are reflective of what we had in New York and California. But in the rest of the state, DeSantis represents what people really are thinking and what they really want. I think he's a great governor.
Yeah. Although I spent a lot of time here, don't live here, but I've lived here part-time for the last 10 years. Politically, I've been active here for 20 years. Even the eastern part of this state is becoming more Republican.
Yes, it is.
Used to be the eastern part of the state, basically Miami up to about Palm Beach, was solid Democrat. I think DeSantis won Miami County, or what was eventually Dade County.
He did.
And even Trump did fairly well both times that he ran. So this is becoming, Florida is becoming not the swing state that we think of it in 2000. It's becoming basically a Republican state.
Yes, it is. Yes.
And I think it's also the fact that they've had several really good governors. DeSantis is building on an excellent record by Governor Scott, who was, I thought, one of the best governors in America.
Right.
A little interruption with Charlie Crist, who's just a crazy Republican Democrat. I have a whole history with Charlie, and And then, Governor Bush was a fabulous governor.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
So you've got like out of 25 years, you've got excellent governors, one after another, constantly making little improvements, whether it's education or crime or just basic health, emergency management. We have one of the best emergency management systems in the country.
Yeah. Florida has become the home of people who want to be free.
Yeah.
And they show that in how they live and in how they vote.
So now if you live in New York, you have to deal with the following. Florida has something like 2 million more people than New York. And its budget is half New York's budget.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the city of New York, which has 8 million people compared to something like 20 million in Florida, has a budget that's a little bit higher than the state of Florida.
In the whole state.
And I go back and forth, and I don't see some big difference in the quality of services. So somebody's stealing that money in New York.
Or wasting it.
Wasting it, yeah. But it's New York. They're wasting it and stealing it. But it is, it really is remarkable what's happened to Florida. And Texas is a little different. It's a little different set of reasons, but Texas also. And then you have these other states that you mentioned. They're not making the massive numbers. A good many people are moving to North Carolina, South Carolina, to Idaho, to North Dakota, South Dakota.
New Mexico.
New Mexico, yeah. There's a lot of mobility going on, which in a free country, which thank God we still are, they haven't stopped our ability to move. I don't know if the Democrats realize that you may have to get papers in order to move. Like you had to get into a restaurant.
Yeah.
That you were vaccinated.
Yeah.
You have to have papers. If you don't have any papers, you will be, please show me your papers, please. If you don't show me your papers, you will be arrested. And we will put you in a chamber.
Well, thank you for joining us on another exciting, fast-paced hour of America's Mayor Live with America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani.
And thank you to Monsignor Placa, who is just a wonderful, wonderful person and a great priest and a very, very close friend.
And before we get off, Monsignor, are you on social media? If people want to learn more about you, hear from you, is there anywhere they can, or maybe they can just tune in here and we can give them an update?
That's the best. That's the best way.
Okay. Yeah, the man has remarkable observations.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we certainly hope you will join us again.
Any last word on the chaos?
So we'll take one more look here on the chaos. My understanding is they are in tense.
Nancy Pelosi
tense
is the main speaker of the House.
They are undergoing tense negotiations. I'm waiting for that to be the next thing. If you guys don't come on board now, Nancy's going to come back, right?
I don't know. She has 9 lives. She's only used 2 or 3 of them.
And say what you will about Nancy Pelosi. She kept that caucus in line. She impeached our president twice. Say what you will. That's somebody. That's somebody who went in there and kept control of her caucus.
But for the wrong reasons.
Yep.
For the worst reasons. And it damaged the country in so many ways. And sorry, well, we can say that for another time, but we have to make that point about her.
I'll leave with the following question. Which is healthier? The complete, absolute unanimity of the Democrat Party altogether, whether they have to support people who are anti-Semitic or the divisions and debate going on in the Republican Party. With all the chaos and all the problems, I like the division and the debate better.
Sure. To me, that's the picture of America.
Yeah.
It's to me.
Well, thank you very, very much. And remember, tomorrow morning when you get up, say a little prayer and thank God that you're in America.